How's it going out there, YouTube? My name is Jesse, and I am the curator for the Golden Age, and this is another...
Lost Heroes of the Golden Age.
Yes, this is another Lost Heroes of the Golden Age.
You're starting Nedor month a little early.
Yeah, we are starting a little early. I miscalculated my calendar, so we're getting Nedor month a little bit earlier than August beginning, but hey, I really haven't done a lot of Nedor characters, so I don't mind.
I'd like to welcome in all the new subscribers and thank everyone who's watching our videos.
What are you doing?
I'm thanking and welcoming the new people.
Don't you have anything to say about Wonderman?
His girlfriend is extremely hot, and I wish you focused more on her.
Did you have anything else to say?
I didn't have time to write anything down.
Anyways, yeah, we are getting the Nedor month started a little early, but that's fine. I've been kicking around doing Nedor characters for a while. This was one of the ones I wanted to do. I thought that Wonderman, who we're doing, Brad Spencer, was actually a hero that fought Nazis. In fact, he only did that once. It might have been due to the fact that Wonderman came out just about at the time that World War II ended. So him fighting Nazis when there was no more war going on really wouldn't have made a whole lot of sense. I had no idea that he was going to become a space hero. I had to admit, I didn't do too much research on Wonderman before I started doing the research for this video. I had no idea that he went to all the planets in the solar systems and and how grossly our misunderstanding of space was back then. I know we discovered a lot of space by the time Wonderman came out, but we really, yeah. Anyways, I don't think they had a concrete plan because some of the stories, while interestingly well constructed, also felt like that's not what they originally wanted to do. I think Wonderman was gonna be a racket buster, a Nazi stomper, a crime fighter, but he became a spaceman. Now, I haven't really covered too many spacefaring characters, people who are not grounded to the planet of our origin, but would go off to other worlds and see aliens, or why everybody else in the universe seems to be human in some form. So, yeah, I really haven't covered them. That is a genre all of its own that permeated through, I think, the late 40s through most of the 50s. Going into space wasn't a new concept, but the way that they were doing it with Wonderman really hadn't been done. That's why he just jumped around our own solar system. He didn't go much farther than that. Okay, I do a really good cover of him in the intro, so you get an idea of what was going on with him, and then we will cover his first issue, and that's where you'll get the idea that I don't think that where they started from, they were planning on going to where they did, because if you're planning on making a space hero, your first issue surrounds that. It encompasses it. It gets you ready for it. His first issue didn't have anything to do with outer space, so I don't think that this was the original plan, but it's what they ended up doing for him. So you'll get the intro to see where he ended up being, and then you'll see his origin, so you can see where they started from and where they might have initially been going to be going with Wonderman instead of what he ended up becoming. So let's go ahead and kick off this Lost Heroes of the Golden Age. Wonderman, Brad Spencer, first appeared in Complete Book of Comics and Funnies #1 in 1944. publisher is Nedor, and he is created by Unknown. Now, Wonderman didn't have a large appearance in the Golden Age. He had 18 total comic book appearances, and the way with his creation, the rest of his stories didn't follow how his creation was. I mean, he was a scientist and he got his powers that way, and we'll review that when we go over the first issue. But the remaining bit of his adventures were space adventures. Now, these stories were very episodic, and the reason I say that is because he had more or less the same villains through almost everything he did, and it started off with the mystery comics. Now, in the complete book, we have his origin story. Now, in mystery comics 1 through 4, we started establishing the villains and some of the equipment that would be in the remaining episodes of Wonder Comics. Through 1 through 4, we got Dr. Voodoo, who also created the Spiral Vacuum, and we got the Immortal Emperor and Lilith. Now, it was strange that these were reoccurring villains because Dr. Voodoo was killed by creatures that he got from another planet, I believe from Mars. And the Immortal Emperor burned to death. And they went to Lilith's realm, apparently to confront her. And we found out that Dr. Voodoo and the Immortal Emperor were a part of her realm. And they made a spaceship to leave her realm. And they became the main antagonists after that, which was kind of astonishing because both of them were dead. And they died in the comic books. It even says when the Immortal Emperor burns to death that his body dead and aside, and we see his spiritual form going off towards Lilith. Now, Lilith in most of the appearances never took direct action. She was the one who told Dr. Voodoo and the Immortal Emperor what to do. Now, this also became a space-faring adventure. Now, I haven't really gone over very many space heroes. The space heroes are kind of a genre all of their own, but they're littered throughout the Golden Age. The best one that I can cite, that if you know anything about the Golden Age, would be Adam Strange, where now he kept going to the same planet. Wonderman kept going through all the planets in our solar system, and he kept going to the cities that existed on the other planets, Mars, Neptune, Pluto. There was even a palace on the sun. And Dr. Voodoo and the Immortal Emperor were either gathering forces to work against the citizens, like on Neptune and Pluto, or gathering forces to work with him, like the citizens from the sun. They were bad and appeared in a couple of issues. Now, it's not to say that Wonderman didn't make a large presence. His stories weren't short stories. They were rather involved stories. Now, Wonderman appeared on almost every cover that he was in. He was part of a cover feature on Complete Book of Comics. He had his appearance on Mystery Comics. He took all the covers, and I believe he was all but maybe one of the featured stories. Now, just like in a lot of Golden Age, what was happening on the cover was not representative of what was going on in the issue for Mystery Comics, and a lot of that for Wonder Comics as well. Some of the comic covers were what was going on in the issues, but not all of them. Now, the last 4 issues of Wonder Comics, because they ended at number 20, which was also the last 4 appearances of Wonderman, he was not the featured cover or the featured story, but he still had sizable stories. The last 3 stories did not have Dr. Voodoo or the Immortal Emperor, and I believe that they were consumed by some sort of dinosaur creatures near the end of their adventures. Lilith would return one more time, And in the last 2 stories of Wonderman, he was still using the spiral vacuum, which is what they use to transverse the lungs of space. I have no idea how that works. And his costume changed a little bit too. But those would be the last stories that were still space adventures, but not concerning the main 3 antagonists that were in all of the other stories. Now, he would also have equipment that he would gather along his journey. They would get the compensator belt, which I believe was invented by Wonderman. Now, although some of the other planets had Earth-breathable atmosphere, I'm not even going to start to dig into that happened, not all the environments were survivable, so they needed the compensator belt to help with them to adapt to environments that were different from their own. What they also found out is if they lowered the setting on the compensator belt, it would allow them to fly, since flying wasn't originally part of what they were capable of doing. So the compensator belts, I think I might have called it a compression belt earlier, the compensator belts allowed them to do more than what they were capable of otherwise. Now, they would sometimes use guns, and I believe that they acquired a flamethrower as part of their journey. Now, I am referring to plural in this because Wonderman did not work alone. He had a sidekick, sort of, that appeared in the first issue. She never got a name. She had a costume that was very close to Wonderman's at first and would change a little bit when it came near the end. Her name was Carol. And she, let's see, his girlfriend, Carol Page. Now, she only became a girlfriend, and a couple of episodes they would show the silhouette of her changing. Yes, because we try to get men to read comic books, and the silhouette of a young, buxom girl changing is just enough to titillate a man's fantasies. And here, you can see them right here. They definitely wanted to get people to see that. Now, he would get, he would get contacted in many different ways for where he needed to go to fight off Lilith, Voodoo, and the Emperor. Sometimes he would see them with some sort of very powerful telescope, which he would track them with the vacuum spiral, or sometimes he would be identified coordinates that he needed to show the spiral for where it went. Now, in his very first appearance, we will show that how he's got a metal. He's invulnerable. He cannot be harmed, and we'll show why. And I honestly don't understand why he got the name Wonderman. When he was explaining to Carol about his powers, he said, "I have become a human juggernaut due to the powers that was racing through his body, yet he became Wonderman." I cannot find the connection. And why she never got a secret identity is a mystery to me. Now, in his first 2 appearances, which were in the complete book, his first 2 stories, he wore his mask. After he started on his space adventures, he didn't wear his mask anymore. I don't understand why. It wouldn't have hurt him, so he became an unmasked hero at that part. Now, there were a couple of times when he would be interacting with the armies of Earth, and even one time, I believe it was when he was defending the Neptunian city, he actually used the spiral vacuum to bring the army and their tanks to the other planet to help him fight. So he had a good relationship with the military. Now, one more thing I'm going to mention before we get into this. A lot of his issues in Wonder Comics, if you look below the panels, they had little sayings and things. Buy war stamps, help defeat the Nazis, because when he first started, it was 1944. The war hadn't ended yet. So there were a lot of propaganda pieces at the bottom of his comic books when he came out. Now, he would only last from 44 to 49. He had a number of appearances for as far as Nedor went with those. Not super popular, but popular enough that he was the featured cover and the featured story for many of his appearances. But since he was fighting the same antagonists over and over again and never seemed to, I mean, he would always defeat them, but they would always come back. That kind of thing gets a little boring after a while when you're only going after the same villains. I mean, Batman had his rogue gallery, but it was a large rogue gallery. The same way for Captain America, Spider-Man, Superman. It's a large rogue gallery. When your rogue gallery is set to 3 people, and yeah, you are fighting many creatures from other planets, but it always involved those 3, it can get a little tiring after a while, which is why I think in the 4th to last appearance, they got rid of them, and then Lilith was in the 2nd last appearance, and they didn't have anything to do with any 3 of them in his last 2. Which I actually found those 2 stories a little compelling, because we had something different. It wasn't the same 3 people anymore. Okay, I know I've gone on a little bit about this now. I don't think he had an appearance in Project Superpowers. I don't remember them talking about a spaceborne hero, but I do remember seeing that he has a picture at the end. It's his typical costume with his mask, which is funny because he had more appearances without his mask than with his mask, yet people know him commonly for his mask. So, let's go over the first appearance of Wonderman. His origin story is a little bit confusing and interesting, and I'll point out the parts of where I found it didn't properly track for me. One more thing, even though he was invulnerable, there were a couple of times when he became subdued, and that was usually when he was taken by surprise. Yeah, I don't know how being invulnerable and taken by surprise, but it's the golden age. You had to be subdued every now and then. It creates tension. So let's go ahead and cover the first appearance. Brad Spencer, Wonderman. What happens when a man hovers for a moment between death and an incredible transformation? A change that makes his body as invulnerable as a 30-ton tank. See for yourself in the fantastic story of Brad Spencer, who survived a fiery ordeal to become Wonderman. And it's a nice best page here. At the Mammoth Steel Company, we see 2 people talking here. How's that replaceable tank turret idea coming, Brad? I was hoping they'd forgotten about it, Carol. I'm working on a process that will revolutionize the industry. I guess maybe he's supposed to be working on that, and he was hoping that they wouldn't remember it because he was something else he wants to work on. And this is one of the weirdest things I just heard. Shatterproof steel, you mean? That's grown to be a plant-standing joke. I'm very much confused by this. She's saying shatterproof steel. Was steel prone to shattering? I mean, I thought that steel was rather strong stuff. I've been in a smelting plant. It took a high temperature degrees to melt steel. So if it took that kind of heat to melt it, I don't see steel shattering. I tried looking this up, and I can't find any information on shattering steel. I would really like to know why she is saying shatterproof steel. I mean, the only way I could think of steel shattering is if you use, like, liquid nitrogen and then smack it with a hammer, but that would do it to just about anything, wouldn't it? I mean, shatterproof steel? Really? It has, Well, I'm accustomed to being scoffed and laughed at. I'm accustomed to being scoffed at. Laugh while you can. Okay. She says she's not laughing. She really believes in his idea. And he says that he is close to doing it as long as he can depolarize steel atoms. I have absolutely no idea what depolarizing something means, so we'll just go on from there. So on the next page, we see what turns out to be a couple of Nazis. He's talking about how they have made a bullet with an explosive charge that can wreck a building. How in the world? I'm not an expert on the handguns in the 1940s, and what's in his hand seems to be a Ruger, but can a bullet of that size and magnitude really carry such an explosive charge that it can bring down a building? I find that really, really hard to believe. I mean, suspension of disbelief is one thing, but you can't honestly expect me to buy into this. Okay, before we start using it, our intelligence bureau wants a bit of information. The 10th Armored Force is completing its training. The Reich General Staff must know from which front they fight on. And behind a secret arrangement they made with the Mammoth Steel Company. So they know that Mammoth Steel is working with the 10th Armored Division, and they want to know from where they're going to be attacking at. And now, my multiple phase motor is ready, Carol. You're just in time for the first test. Okay. Now, as they're getting ready to start the test, there is a commotion going on outside, and we see this man who is dressed in the orange suit knocking out an intelligence officer. I mean, he's outside the R&D department. He has to be an intelligence officer, I would assume. So they barge in. What's the meaning of this? You're answering questions, my friend, not asking them. And he wants him to stay away from the motor because, it's an experiment he's working on. But since he wants him to stay away, it must be a secret. And it must be a weapon that they really want. But I really don't think that the weapon would do them any good. Anyways. So since they want to steal the weapon, Brad Spencer starts to fight back. I don't give in that easily, heels. Humlo, he's a madman. I don't make it a specialty of this, but until I'm forced to. So he starts to beat up the criminals, so they fire one of these magnificent bullets with the blast ability being able to tear down a building, and they shoot it at him. So he gets attached to his machine. With Carol trapped in the wreckage. Good heavens, Brad. Her current is holding me. Feel something fearful coming nearer. Death for Brad Spencer, or an agonizing rebirth. A faithful miracle shaped by a shearing voltage. So he breaks free of the machine. Now, I am a little confused about what's going on in this next scene. He breaks free of the machine, and now he's by a brick wall in a car. Now, I don't know from the vantage point that we're looking at. He holds one of the guys and says, "Give me information, Wildcat, Sports Fred, tomorrow." Not much to work on. I'd better get started. So I guess he punches this guy, and there's a hole in the wall, I guess. Like I said, I don't know which vantage point we're coming from because there's a car right next to Brad, and then the car seems to be flying in the air, judging by the lines coming from it. So I honestly don't know the vantage point that we're looking at. Okay, and now they're completely on another subject. Then that depolarizing current had the same effect on you as it would have on steel. Again, I have no idea what depolarizing is, so I can't say whether this makes sense or not. Somehow my bodies have retained a multi-phase voltage. I've turned into a human juggernaut, Carol. Then why are you called Wonderman? You just said you've turned into a human juggernaut. That doesn't have anything to do with wonder. Our first job is to nab the spies before the real target of those explosive bullets. Okay, so he says that he's going to check out Sportsford, and she wants her to make a couple of costumes. What kind of time frame are we working with? And she says, costumes, why me? You've chanced to be the only witness to what happened to the old Brad Spencer, and that's one way of keeping the secret. From now on, we're working together. After your first couple appearances, you weren't wearing a mask anymore. Why is it so important to keep a secret when you don't even keep your identity hidden? Okay, so that night at Brad's home, how did you build those costumes so fast? I mean, we're not on the next page yet, so you can't see the costume yet. I have seen the costume. How did you make them so quickly? I mean, you're carrying the costumes. The little thing you're carrying says costumes. Can't we just watch the town and wait for the gang to show up? But that's full of factories, rail yards, everything. I can't risk missing them. So we come up on the next day. That's the next day. He said the guy in charge of Mammoth Steel says that he's got a wire from General Norton, and he wants to know how far Brad is on those interchangeable turrets. And he says that was Spencer's job, but he's quit, and he left a note. And the guy from Mammoth Steel goes, I don't think so. He's going to finish this job if it's the last thing he does. He quit. You can't make him work on that. But he's still sending them these photographs anyways. A set of plans and photographs from Mammoth, Brad. The message says it's urgent. I'm hardly in the mood, but I might as well look it over. And since he starts to look at the plans, that's when he realized what Wildcat meant. The emblem, the 10th Armored Forces uses a Wildcat. And that gang will be after them when the train hits Stanford. Okay. So we see them putting on their costume. I hope you won't have to send your costume back for alterations. Now, how in the world? First of all, why a W? He said he was a human juggernaut. H and J doesn't have anything to do with W. Secondly, how did she make those costumes so fast? Even if we want to go ahead and think that the costumes weren't finished the next day, because this is the next day, you finished a full body costume for him and a top and skirt for you. Specific colors. How did you make those so fast? In the 1940s, we didn't have printing machines that could just knock off outfits like this so fast. And I'm supposing that they're spandex, considering the way that they're form-fitting. I really like to know how people get costume paint so fast. So they get to the rail field, and they want to let someone know that the train is going to be in danger. But they get there at the same time as Rainick, look up there. Whoever they are, the explosive bullets against those live wires will save us a lot of trouble. So they shoot at the wires, and Wonderman pushes, it looks like he pushes Carol out of the way, but he gets hit by the high-tension wires, and he's stunned and falls on the track. Wonder where the girl went. Never mind. The troop train's coming. Throw him across the tracks. So that they're hoping to let the train kill the giant W costume. They don't know who he is because he's never been seen before. Turfle, grab her. I'm not only dressed for action, I'm ready to make with it. That's a weird way of saying it. So she smashes the guy with the shovel, and she hits him so hard that he fires out one of the bullets. And the bullet hits inches ahead of the onrushing engine. Now, no, I do not buy into this. That bullet is supposed to be so hard that it knocks down skyscrapers. It also blasted so close to Brad that it knocks him off the railroad track. If that explosive was that close to the train, that train is derailed right now. There is no way that an explosive charge, that it says inches. If it was that close to the train, it knocks the train off the tracks and it gets derailed. But in the next scene, they even say the train hasn't passed yet. The train is still going. So they want to go ahead and take a shot at the train while they have a chance. You already took a shot at the train. The explosive was inches away. The whole thing should be derailed. Okay, Brad starts to come to. He was a little dizzy, but he moves in on the men and knocks them both out. I'll stop that devil before he gets out of hand, and Carol kicks the gun out of his hand while Wonderman fully subdues him. And I'll go ahead and read the last panel here. With the Nazis overwhelmed, now that that's over, I must admit I got a bit wobbly when you were knocked out. I've learned something from that, Carol. You're a smart man. I can be overcome if I'm caught off guard, but I don't think that will happen often. You're telegraphing the future. Underlings of fascism were serving notice. Wonderman is back in the next issue, and he'll mean business. Yeah, the human juggernaut being called Wonderman. Okay, I've harped on this enough. This is the first appearance and origin of Wonderman. Okay, well, that kicks off Nedor, professional bun handler. This is actually for a hot dog shop in Tennessee, but I wear it because of what it says. Anyways, I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope you're really keen about getting into the Nedor month, which is where we're at right now. I have a couple of characters in mind, but if there's anybody that you want to see before Nedor month is over, go ahead and let me know. I'd hate to skip over somebody that you wanted to see this month because I didn't have them on my list, but they were on your list. So if you do have somebody that you want to see for Nedor, you can go ahead and let me know, and we'll do our best to and try to include them. I don't want to skip somebody that you want to see, but I don't know whether you want to see him unless you let me know. So until next time, I'll be seeing you.